Okay, you're watching Live Now. I'm Austin Westfall. We've continued to track the recovery efforts. There is a lot of work to do in Venezuela, as Venezuelans are still searching beneath collapsed buildings after northern areas of the country were rocked by a pair of powerful earthquakes. The U.S. military is saying it's helping with efforts. It's saying that joint forces are bringing airlift, logistics, and life-saving capabilities to support the government of Venezuela during the crisis. U.S. Southcom has been working on this. Of course, Venezuela falls under the jurisdiction of U.S. Southern Command. They just sent this out within the past hour or so. I want to read this out. Southcom says surging forces are supporting the Venezuelan earthquake relief efforts. Southcom is surging available assigned U.S. military forces in our region to support Department of State-led U.S. government relief operations in Venezuela following the devastating earthquakes that struck the nation on the 24th. The interim Venezuelan authorities formally requested U.S. assistance in the aftermath. Commander General Francis L. Donovan has directed significant forces to the effort, including the amphibious transport ship USS Fort Lauderdale and the littoral combat ship USS Billings. C-17 Globemaster and C-130 Hercules transport aircraft will also support, along with reconnaissance platforms and rotary wing aircraft. Of course, we've been tracking this Venezuela situation over the past 24 hours or so, but the U.S. getting involved in this capacity is certainly something that we're going to keep an eye on. Hal Kempfer is here. He's a former, and he has a lot of hats. We bring Hal on a lot of times doing military analysis. But Hal also does he formerly did military emergency preparedness liaison work. He was a liaison officer for emergency preparedness. He also trains foreign countries on how to respond to these types of disasters. In general, Hal, and I know you've worked closely with a lot of these types of efforts, how does the U.S. fit into the picture when we're talking about efforts in another country?
Well, we're going to be surging a lot of aid in across the board. There'll be military stuff, and you saw that from U.S. Southern Command. U.S. Southern Command under General Donovan is going to be the lead for coordinating all the military support going down there. I'm seeing what I expected to see, which is heavy lift aircraft, because we got a lot of stuff we have to get in there, and we have to get it in fast, particularly flying in things like what we call USAR teams. These are the urban search and rescue teams. These are not military, but it's a program that's been led by FEMA. They're funded under FEMA money through a Department of Homeland Security. These are highly trained, well-equipped teams that are very quickly deployable worldwide. We use them in a variety of things. The earthquakes over in Turkey, we used them in, if you remember the tsunami and earthquake and Fukushima meltdown over in Japan. Anytime you have stuff with a lot of urban destruction, they fly them out. One's in Los Angeles County. I've worked very closely with a number of the folks with that USAR team. And then, of course, the other one is Fairfax. It's called USA 1, USA 2. They've got to get down there with a ton of equipment, a lot of other things. So military airlift is one of the ways that they will be moving a lot of this equipment down there to do that. These are pretty capable teams, but we want to get those down fast, because the first thing you want to do is you want to rescue people who are trapped under the rebels. So they bring so they bring a lot of capabilities with them, to include the dogs that can smell people and lead rescuers to where they are. And it's very difficult when you look at the destruction going on to find victims under all that, brick and everything else. So they want to get them down there fast. And then the next thing you're going to find is more support stuff, medical support, logistics support. They'll need things like fresh water, so we may be bringing in some purification units for that. Obviously, food. There are no shortage of items that Venezuelans and Venezuela needs at this point to deal with this crisis.
So, we were watching, anybody that happened to be watching us at this time last night knows that we were showing some of the live images as these groups of people. It was really like a human chain. We just saw some of it. But as you were mentioning, I mean, they're lifting these huge pieces of debris, and they're kind of using this human chain formation to bring these huge pieces of concrete out of these piles of rubble. You mentioned some of the past disasters that we've tracked in recent decades. The 2004 Indian Ocean earthquake comes to mind, the 2010 Haiti quake, more recently the 2023 Turkey and Syria quakes. Those are among the deadliest this century. Aside from the size of an earthquake, Hal, what are the main factors that determine how many casualties are caused in these situations?
Well, there's a lot of different factors. A lot of it has to do with, particularly at this type of thing with the earthquake, we look at the construction of the buildings. And that's one of the problems of Venezuela. It's interesting. They got hit with a 7.1 and a 7.5. Now, a lot of variations on that depth of the quake, where the epicenter was. But it was interesting to see the devastation from this at almost the same time in Japan. They got hit with a 7.2. Not a lot of damage. I don't know if there are any serious casualties over in Japan. That has to do with the structural integrity of the buildings. A lot of the buildings down there are not built to earthquake code, shall we say. A lot of unreinforced masonry, a lot of stuff that just isn't very stable when you have an earthquake, and you're seeing it. You're seeing multi-stories. I think in one case they talked about a 10-story building. I believe it was a resort building that just came collapsing down. You could imagine what happened to everybody in there. Also, all these other buildings that are smaller. You saw the airport, which is usually some of the better construction, and you saw a lot of damage, walls falling, all those things. Then the other issue that comes out of that is you'll have, and this is something you're going to see a lot of, and you are seeing a lot of, when you talk about these human chains, you're seeing a lot of neighbors helping neighbors, everybody going in there and pitching in to help. But the danger is they can go in there with all the best of intentions to go in and help someone, pulling stuff out, but you're dealing with a lot of walls and concrete things, very heavy, that are kind of precariously they're collapsed and sitting there. So people start digging out, trying to help victims, and they'll get in there and they don't put up a lot of the support. They don't reinforce. They don't shore up a lot of these walls and these other things, ceilings and stuff that have collapsed. And literally the rescuers will become the victims. And one of the things the USAR teams are dealing with, have traditionally dealt with, is they spend a lot of time rescuing rescuers, which are well-meaning individuals without proper equipment or proper training who are trying to do something, and they go in to rescue somebody and they get themselves trapped. That's a big challenge. I think we're going to see a lot of it in this case, just because culturally Venezuelans, the culture is one where Venezuelans help Venezuelans. I would be remiss if I didn't point out something. We've just had this huge political shift. Maduro was taken to the United States. We're working with the current government there. But in these disasters, you can see follow-on implications. One of the things being discussed is the lack of government, first responders and government forces, government personnel that are coming into the different neighborhoods. I know you see some of it on the video where you'll see, okay, there's the military, there's police forces, but there's been a lack of dedicated emergency response or a sufficient emergency response. The perception that the government is unable to help the people will be something that the government is going to have to deal with, and the consequences of that won't happen right away, but traditionally they can have some enormous impact. I would point to the Soviet Union, Chernobyl in '87, the Armenian earthquake in '88. In both cases, it felt the government was covering it up, that the government was not providing sufficient support. And of course, a few years later, the Soviet Union fell. And that's always considered one of these major contributing factors to why the Soviet Union did fall in '91. That's something that they're going to be, obviously, we'll all be looking at to see what happens down there. Does the government have the ability to do stuff? And so far, it doesn't appear that they're very well organized to do this, and I think that's going to have ramifications.
So about a half a year ago, the U.S. goes into Caracas and nabs Nicolas Maduro. He remains in custody to this day. His vice president takes over. To this day, she is still referred to as the interim president of Venezuela, Delcy Rodriguez. And she's really taken a more cooperative relationship and a more cooperative tone since she became the acting president. And she thanked President Trump on social media. She says, we thank President Trump and his administration, who have been in constant contact with Venezuelan authorities, offering support and solidarity to the people of Venezuela in the face of this tragedy that has plunged us into mourning. It got me thinking, if Maduro had not been nabbed, would the U.S., would they have been able to support Venezuela in this same way?
I think it would have been very, very problematic. I don't know if politically we could have pulled that off. I'm not quite sure what would have happened there. I have a feeling that for political purposes, he might have kept the U.S. at arm's length, obviously not wanting U.S. U.S. Personnel down there. Specifically, he wouldn't want U.S. military personnel operating in the country. And I think that would have been, he would have pushed that back, and that would translate into greater casualties. You know, a lot of people who are injured in these things, it's like any other earthquake anywhere else, but a lot of people are suffering serious injuries. And if they don't get medical assistance, if they don't get proper medical care soon, they will pass away. They're not going to make it. And so what you'll see, and I think we're going to see this here right now, the casualties, they're saying a couple hundred are dead, and then they have hundreds more that are injured. What I understand in Venezuela is that communications is shot. They can't get information from some of these major urban areas. They definitely can't get it from some of these rural, smaller cities that have been hit. So the communications, so the reporting of who's dead and who's injured and everything is really bad, which also is indicative of their ability to get medical aid, to help those who are injured to get the medical aid. And the longer that goes on, the less people survive. That's going to be a big, big problem in Venezuela, and that's going to have ramifications that go well beyond just the response to the disaster itself. That's going to have bigger ramifications across the board.
Hal Kempfer is the host of the Strap podcast. Thanks for the time, Hal.